We throw around words like responsibility, cooperation, empathy all the time. We talk about having good values, but how do we get from just talking about them to actually truly living them? Well, let's dive right in because this explainer is all about a really powerful method for closing that exact gap. I mean, think about it for a second. It's probably one of the most common things we say, right? Be responsible or be a team player. But what does that really mean? It's kind of abstract. How do you take a word that's on a poster in a classroom and make it a real, tangible skill someone can use? That's the big challenge we're going to tackle. And this right here gets to the absolute core of the problem. On one side, you have the idea of a value. You can look up the textbook definition of responsibility. But on the other side, you have the practice of it, like the simple, concrete act of cleaning up your own space without being asked. There is a huge, huge difference between knowing the path and actually walking it. So how do we build that bridge? How do we close that gap? Well, the answer is in this really powerful shift in thinking. It's called the action learning approach, and it's all about moving us away from just theory and getting us deep into practice. So here's the big idea in a nutshell. Instead of someone just lecturing you about values, this approach says, nope, we're going to learn them by actually doing stuff, real-life activities. The keywords here are direct participation and real life. You're not just reading about cooperation in a book, you're out there actually cooperating on a project. And what's so cool about this is that it's not a one-and-done kind of lesson. It's a continuous cycle, a loop. You start with an experience, then you stop and reflect on it. You learn something from that reflection, and then you go act again, but this time with a little more wisdom. It's this constant process of improving.
The absolute best analogy for this is building a muscle. It's perfect. You can read 100 books on fitness, watch all the videos you want, but your biceps are not going to grow until you actually pick up the dumbbell. This approach, this is about picking up the dumbbell. It's about doing the work that builds character.
All right, so that's the what. We get the concept. Now let's get into the how. Let's look at the practical blueprint you can actually use, whether it's at home with your family, in a classroom, or even with your team at work.
It really breaks down into these pretty simple steps. First, you pick a value. Let's stick with responsibility. And you plan an action around it. Maybe something like organizing a community cleanup. Step 2, you go out and you actually do the cleanup. Third, and this part is absolutely critical, you reflect on it. And finally, you figure out, okay, how can I apply what I just learned to my everyday life?
I really want to pause on this reflection step because it is everything. It's not just about asking, so what happened? It's about digging so much deeper with questions like these. What did you feel while you were doing this? Or what problems did you run into? Questions like that are what turn a simple task into a really profound, lasting learning experience. And you know what? When you follow this cycle consistently, something pretty amazing starts to happen. You move way beyond just a one-off lesson. You start to create a truly lived value, something that actually transforms behavior across all the different parts of your life. So why does this work so well? Well, it's because of these key features. The tasks you do are real and they feel meaningful. It almost always involves collaborative problem solving, and, importantly, it focuses on changing behavior, not just cramming your head with more knowledge. Every time you do the action, you reinforce the value, making it stronger and stronger. And the great thing is, this approach is incredibly versatile. You could, for example, organize a tree planting project to practice community and service. Or you could set up a peer helping program where people tutor each other to build empathy and cooperation. You could even run an Adopt a Responsibility challenge at work to teach direct accountability. The possibilities are, endless.
Oh, and the role of the leader? Whether you're a parent, a teacher, or a manager, it changes completely. You're no longer the expert who stands at the front of the room and lectures. Instead, you become a guide, a motivator, you're a coach who sets up the experience and then helps people draw their own powerful conclusions from it.
Ultimately, if you take one thing away from all this, let it be this. The action learning approach is so powerful because it takes these fuzzy, abstract ideas that we all talk about and it turns them into something real, something concrete, something you can actually do. It really is the difference between knowing what's right and doing what's right. This whole approach gives us the tools to finally close that gap, to help ourselves and the people we lead not just know our values, but to truly, deeply live them every single day. So, I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. Looking at your own life, your family, your team, your community, what's just one value you could start putting into action?
What small, meaningful activity could you plan to start turning that abstract idea into a concrete practice? Maybe even starting today.